Behavior. There is a crack in everything. Behavior. What does that even mean, to behave? We can start with the premise of what behavior means etymologically. In English, to behave comes from Old English behaven. Be and have together. To hold, to surround, to contain. To have oneself in a certain way. The way we carry and conduct ourselves in front of others and in front of our life. In French, we will say comporter, which is to bring together, to gather who we are and how we act into one gesture. So behavior is how we hold ourselves and how we carry ourselves, the way we bring our parts together in one line of action, the way we draw a definition and move in a direction. I've been really integrating the idea of what behavior is because I speak about Aristotle showing us the telos of humanity as pursuit of happiness. And that is already going to decipher and describe the behavior of a collective. When you go to von Mises in Human Action, he says that this is a purposeful behavior. If you go to Carl Jung, we're going to see the behavior is about integrating our unconscious with our conscious. So where do I stand now? Studying markets, I always read the behavior of demand and supply. When I look and observe at other people's reactions or responses, including my own. I'm looking at behavior and integrity and principles. These are words that carry a lot of weight. If we go to principle, it means beginning, principium in Latin, the foundation. Integrity means that synthesis is allowed to include other parts. I always say that principles are a horizontal line where we stand, and integrity as individuals is a vertical line that does have a price, where the individual will arrive to a place and say, I will not bend beyond this height. Integrity is very subjective. We can judge other people for their own lack of integrity, and we can see ourselves where we also bend. Now, I am speaking about all this because Saturn is finally going to go direct on the 27th of November. That is Thanksgiving here in the United States. After a few months since July 13th, it went retrograde from Aries back to Pisces on September 1st. And now it is going to go direct at 25 degrees of Pisces. It will reach Aries again in February to then approach the final great conjunction with the planet Neptune, who is the ruler of Pisces. Saturn has been in Pisces for the last 3 years. Try to remember everything that has been going on in your life since March 2023. For me, it was my second Saturn return. They say that when you have done the work, your second Saturn return gives you a lot of goodies. I think I have had a lot of goodies in the last years. Realizations, motivations, achievements, if you want to call it that. By the way, Mark asked me yesterday in our monthly session what I would say now about the second Saturn return, having effectively been through it, and I told him this. By the time Saturn came back in 2023, I already knew that my most painful turning had been my Chiron return when I was 50, when I shattered in a million pieces because I had lived without boundaries and felt completely empty. So I prepared. Years before Saturn entered Pisces, I chose therapy and I chose to work on boundaries. I chose to start writing my first book as a reflection of what that coming of age meant. And now, with the second book, as a spine of 33 vertebrae is holding the structure quite gently. Because with Saturn in the first house in Pisces, I can be any fucking form I want. And the only way to give it form is to know myself and take care of myself first. This cycle has been about standing my ground, doing the homework instead of escaping, reparenting myself, feeling both parents at my back, while I rebuild my nervous system from the core and stop shrinking to make space for others. My mom died as I was coming out of this second Saturn return, and somehow that sealed the work. I am standing in my own personality now, breathing fully, supporting my own needs without guilt. Second Saturn return was a banger. Saturn is always slow and it needs direction. It wants to achieve something. It is very concrete. It is very driven. It is driven towards a direction of success, but Saturn is also the father figure. Saturn is the authority that can show us that there is a clean way to go somewhere. The problem of Saturn or Capricorn are that they can be very constraining, limiting, austere, bland, even stingy. It can be a pain in the neck. But I love Saturn because it is the ruler of my South Node, and I have learned to really understand its generosity. Believe it or not, it is very generous because it gives you time, chronos, to basically figure it out. There are two versions of time. There is chronos, which is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, around the clock. And then there is kairos, which is a different kind of time, the right timing. When you align with your frequency and things happen in a more magical way, the opportune and decisive moment. We're talking about linear time. Yesterday, today, tomorrow. That is the kind of time that Chronos or Saturn is giving us the power of. When you have achieved your goals and you're a good boy or a good girl, you get a medal, right? Like a dog, you get a little biscuit. This is ridiculous because this is how society has been encoding to tell us that we have to behave. Therefore, we're going to get a prize. A lot of people do it for the prize. They do not do it even for doing it for themselves. Sometimes Saturn or Capricorn lacks a little bit of passion because it is very rigid in the form, concentrated on the little cookie at the end of the rainbow. I'm not. As I wrote a week ago, I'm not at all. Fuck that shit. I already sent New York to hell, and my life right now has nothing to do with that kind of rigidity. Actually, it allowed me to integrate Saturn into the moon, which is the parent planet. Saturn is the father, the moon is the mother. Saturn and Capricorn oppose Cancer, the moon, our ancestors, in a feminine way. I have integrated my feminine side. I do not have to prove anything to anyone. I know I can do it. Fuck yeah, I can do it. If there's anybody who can do it, it is me, because I am driven. The question is always, at what price? I'm not willing to give anything that does not belong to my frequency just because I want to achieve it. Saturn has taught me that even when you do the list and you check all the boxes, you do not necessarily get where you belong. Belonging comes from the heart. Belonging is embracing an environment that is thriving in opportunities to reconnect to what emotions are. Otherwise, you stay in Saturn. You become reactive. Sometimes you do not even know where these reactions are coming from. And like this, you cannot grow. To look at Saturn, we have to look not only to the moon, but also to Mars in Aries and Venus in Libra. There are the squaring quadrants, the cardinals. And guess who's going to go to 0 degrees in Aries? Saturn and Neptune in February. This axis is the beginning of spring and the beginning of fall. This is a beautiful way to talk about this cardinal square where everything initiates. In weather-like conversations, we say that spring begins at 0 degrees of Aries, the fall begins at 0 degrees of Libra, and the summer begins at 0 degrees of Cancer, and the winter in the northern hemisphere begins at 0 degrees of Capricorn. So what is it about in our lives that we initiate every quarter? Which aspect? When it is in Aries Mars, it is about individuality. That is where Saturn is entering February onwards. The Great Reset. We saw a bit of this in the summer before it went back retrograde. I saw where my needs are. I know what my value is right now after this long Saturn retrograde. I will not speak too much about it because one of the things that I learned is to only share what is needed. Oversharing is devaluing myself. If you really want to get more of that, or what I do, then you have to commit yourself to my offerings. That is all I have to say. You will not get me for too many freebies. That is what I've learned during this Saturn retrograde. More compact, less expressive, more abstract, still genuine. That is me. Neptune has been holding the last degree in Pisces. That great stone face, the image of an ideal that shapes the one who contemplates it long enough. This is the boy who grows into the mountain he stares at. The face carved by time, into rock and into flesh. Saturn is turning direct at 26 degrees of Pisces. That new moon that divides its influences. The moment where the sky is dark and the seed is present and you decide where you're going to plant it. Which project, which path, which loyalty you're going to feed with your behavior. These two symbols together are very simple and very precise. What you have been idealizing is now asking for form, and the form is chosen by your behavior. No one chooses it for you. Saturn in Pisces closing its 3-year cycle and Neptune sitting at the end of the zodiac are one threshold. Endings that already contains the beginning and the clarity about what no longer holds your face, and the first cut you make with your own will. Neptune sits at 29 degrees of Pisces. When you read the Sabian symbols, you read 30 degree. It's called the Great Stone Face. In Dan Ruger's reading of the Sabian symbols, this degree speaks of the power of an inner ideal to sculpt character over time. The way a face slowly becomes the image it contemplates. 26 of Pisces is a new moon that divides its influences. This degree describes the first quiet moment of a new cycle when several possible paths open at once, and free will is tested through the behavioral choice of which influence, project, or loyalty to feed. Ta-da! Mainstream? Fuck that. What is it to be mainstream? It means that somebody already did the hard work of carving a path. A few bold and courageous ones opened the way. Then others followed because they trusted the elders and walked the same path. By the time things are mainstream, the curve has already been drawn. It is no longer innovative. It is just the herd following. That is why I really simply bloody hate the mainstream. Everything feels mainstream right now. You open any of the social media apps, whatever, and most of the communication is a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. Finding authenticity feels like finding a needle in a haystack. In these last degrees of Pisces, whether it's Saturn or Neptune still there, the amount of mirages and mirrors that are reflecting and projecting is multiplying. To find our own authenticity within this realm right now is something you do with every breath. It is every breath, not one meditation a week, not one retreat, not one ayahuasca journey, not one conversation with your therapist. It is every moment, all the time. These are crucial times because as we enter 2026, we will see that whatever we were working on this year is taking shape. Behavior is the living definition of who we serve. Structure is the way we align our choices with the source we name and the source we trust. We say we trust, not we believe. We trust, because source and the self are trust. If my God is coherence, then my behavior has to reflect coherence. If my God is the mainstream, then my behavior will keep copying the herd. Saturn turning direct in Pisces and moving towards Aries by next year, along with Neptune, is asking each one of us to decide which face we're carving with our actions, which temple we are building with our time, which God we're embodying with our every breath. Authenticity is more than a slogan or a nice word. It is a daily refusal to outsource our behavior to the collective form. That authenticity is defined by your own integrity. It is how you synthesize your experience on this earth. Ta-da! Quote, I see a lot of this cancel culture happening in general, on the internet for everyone. I think there is a need of much more culture of forgiveness. I will not cancel a friend because we think different. I try to stay connected with what my mission is, which is to make music from the most loving place possible. Rosalia. Lux. Talking about authenticity, I could not talk about Rosalia's latest album. It has moved me for the last 2 weeks. It is called Lux. It is an incredible masterpiece. I'm not going to talk about her musical prowess because I'm not a critic, but I can talk about what I feel is going on. She has actually spent the last 3 years of Saturn in Pisces going in, trying to find her own light. And she has said that everything that stemmed from that inner time is what came out in this record. And I can tell you that it is true. She also acknowledged being influenced by Leonard Cohen's anthem, Ring the Bells That Still Can Ring. Forget your perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. And that's how the light gets in. But basically, she went deep, 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 deep and wanted to give it all in this album. And she did, both musically, lyric-wise, and how she expresses herself right now. Her songs draw from saints, scripture, and mystics, including 12th century abbess Hildegard of Bingen. And she even kept a world map of saints in her studio while she was composing. I actually never really cared about her or her work before, but for some reason I pressed play a couple of weeks ago on her new album, and I was completely taken by its depth, by its beauty, and by the way the light is coming through her voice. Lux in Latin means light, and right now she's emanating it. For her, this is a very personal relationship to source and to the light. It is a reminder that we all have that possibility. So thank you, Rosalia, for that. I'm just going to drop a couple of songs that I find amazing. The whole album is a masterpiece, not just musically, but everything in it is just a delight. You can also listen to an interview that I'm going to drop at the end. Be grateful. I am. The funny thing is that I'm talking about individual and collective behavior, and Rosalia is just about to influence the collective, making the light mainstream. LOL. Is that not something? Happy Thanksgiving.